Welcome to the Town of Richmond Water and Sewer Commission meeting, May the 5th, 1925, 2025. Are there, yes, right. Public comments? All right, here's your chance. Smart man. Additions, deletions, or modifications to the agenda? Anybody? Moving right along, approval of the minutes from April the 19th.
Move to approve.
Well, the minute agenda says the 7th. I don't think that's right.
Shoot, no, that's a typo.
Should be this 7th, right?
It should be the 21st.
Right.
21st.
Yeah, I didn't change
Month
it.
April was just a blur for you, wasn't it?
Yeah, they usually are.
You want me to just put it on the next agenda? I can carry it over. That way we have it warned correctly.
Okay,
Yeah.
it's fine. Okay.
Oh, shoot, I forgot a notepad.
I didn't bring one today either.
Yeah. Do you have something? Okay, might have something. Otherwise, I can pop the letter up. I'll run downstairs if you guys.
No, actually, I don't have an usual.
Let me put the letter up. You guys can start to talk about the letter. And then I'll be back in 2 minutes.
I got it.
There you go.
Oh, dude, you are. Thank you. Excellent. Okay.
We're waiting for the minutes or?
Yeah, we can wait on the minutes.
We don't have any purchase orders, but we do have warrants. So
Right.
I move to approve the warrants as presented.
Okay,
There's Bart, I second.
okay, discussion.
I feel good about those. I'm glad to be a part.
The warrants?
Mhm.
Okay. Good, no further discussion, calling for a vote on the warrants as presented. Please state your vote.
David, I. Bart, I.
Jay, aye.
Morgan, aye. Motion passes. Okay, we purchase orders, so, next up, first, consideration of approving a letter to the state regarding the review process for the Tilden Avenue, Bridge Street, and Cochran Road Waterline project. So
It's the classic strongly worded letter.
who gets to sign this?
That's you.
Yeah.
As
But
time,
let's have water commission.
yeah.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear.
Thank you.
Happy birthday to you.
Thank you very much.
Yes, we're very happy. So, no-
My children will be so glad to know that you knew
Oh. Okay, good.
these for us.
Those are the letter. If anybody had any comments about the letter, other than it was.
Well, I hope they actually read it. I mean, it does it lays out the timeline pretty well.
I observed that I find the timeline just in itself rather compelling,
Right.
given
Exactly.
when it started.
Right, and the fact that we'll pay what, probably an extra 30% to get those.
At least.
Yeah, at least.
Yeah.
30%, so anyway, anybody want to make a motion or do we need a motion?
We need a motion. Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the letter to be sent to the Water Investment Division regarding the review process for the Tilden Avenue, Bridge Street, and Cochran Road Waterline project.
This is David, I'll second.
Need further discussion? No further discussion, calling for a vote on the approval of the letter to the Agency of Natural Resources, is it? Yep,
Aaron, I.
David, I. Bart, I.
Morgan, aye. Motion passes. Okay,
Fun part.
yes. Review of third quarter's fiscal year 25 financials. Is that right?
Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
Yes.
You maybe bring these up.
Yep. Okay, so we start with these guys here. So included in the packet is a few notes on the financials. So I'll sort of walk through those notes in the meeting so commission can review and public can hear. So the cash balance for water and sewer remains at $1.3 million. It's been about 1.3, 1.2 for a very long time, so it remains very stable. This, I had to insert a new one here this afternoon. I noticed that the numbers here, the final totals.
Could you
for-
zoom in?
Yeah, I will. The totals for FY 25 Q3 were incorrect on this sheet. So I swapped it in the packet and just wanted to note that here to the board. And just some highlights here. So revenue for water is currently at $231,000. This time last year, we were about $276,000. So we are trending a bit behind on water revenue. Waste, and that's billed revenue, so that's bills that have gone out. Wastewater revenue, we're at currently $260,000. We were at $245 last year, so trending up. And then on septage, we were at 336,000 now. We were at 300 last year. So we finished at 485 last year. So about 185,000 came in the fourth quarter, which I think shows the uptick once spring starts to come around and the snow thaws. So we might be on track for another $500,000 a year, which I think could be very good.
I think, what was April? I don't have. But it was
Busy.
over 5.
Yeah, it was over 5.
Over five what?
500K.
Oh,
Of septage
Oh,
taken in.
Yeah.
And so that's a good,
500,000,
huh?
$500,000 or gallons,
Yeah.
5 gallons
Yeah,
taken
okay.
in.
right? Wouldn't be dollars. So looks like we're trending in the right spot for
Yeah.
septage.
I mean, we've. Yeah, I would say we're headed up for the spring swing.
Delinquent accounts, I think, continue to be good. So you look at in January 31st, we had $8,800 outstanding. That gets paid down throughout the month. We had $403 delinquent by the end of March 31st. And all three of those accounts were on payment plans. So not a lot outstanding, and keeping everybody on payment plans is a good thing. We have a review of the reserves. I think the biggest note here, and we talked about this last time with financials, is that wastewater total restricted and unrestricted funds are about $300,000 less than we were in FY 24. And that's mostly due to some of the large purchases like the press and other large pieces that we had to purchase that we talked about several times, but that's where that big drop off comes. Next, we'll go over to the budget status report, and new this time after our conversation at the last meeting about expenses and budget status report. Connie put this she exported it into Excel and then sort of rearranged it to meet the same order that our current budget is for FY 25. One thing that I really like about this is it actually shows true totals. So if you look down here at the budget, you can see budgeted revenue and the actual revenue. And as we go down to total expenses, it's just really clear that, total expenses was 398 for the budget. We're at 223. So we're at 56% of budget when we should be at about 75.
Mhm.
So I think this gives us it's much clearer. And I thank Connie for putting into this format. Couple notes on the budget status report. We'll start here with water revenue. We're at about 69%. And we'll talk about this when we get to the budget a little bit later. The wastewater treatment facility has really used a lot less water in the past year. Part of that was due to fixing that leak. I think that was in February of 24. But also when talking with Steve, they've really tightened up on water use. They found a few valves that were calling for water where they didn't need to be calling for water. So they've replaced that and they've become very, very conservative on water use.
Thank you.
No, like I was telling Josh, we really, when we started to find the water leak, we started to look at everything that was using water. And essentially what we've learned is the treatment plant doesn't use water. Dewatering uses water. We can actually run the treatment plant with the water shut off, and we did when we had the water break. The problem is the way the polymer is mixed with water and added to the flock in dewatering, it requires quite a lot. And I was telling Josh that Fournier now has a new polymer system. I mean, it's a lot of money right now, and we don't need it right this second, but it essentially uses no water. So you can essentially run dewatering with no water. So if eventually we can get that in, our water usage down there should be like a home. Really, I mean, essentially just a house use. If we stay on and make sure the valves are working right and everything, because essentially. Each one of the septic receiving unit and our dewatering screen have 4 solenoid valves. We have changed, since I've been there, we have changed all 8 of them. And when they fault wide open. So it's essentially, and we found 3 of them wide open because they were so old and they were just defunct, and that's how they were run. So we essentially took 3 garden hoses and shut them off. And that's how our water bill kept coming down. Karen?
So it sounds like it's a really good thing that we've reduced the water at the plant, but then when you look at the number here, if we're 100,000, I assume that's like the budgeted versus the
Oh,
actual
for revenue.
on revenue.
I think some of that's due to reducing the amount of the plant.
Absolutely, but I guess I'm wondering, that'll obviously change what we budget for next year. And putting in the water meters, now that they're almost all in, we haven't found anyone.
Oh, we do weekly, daily. Matter of fact, I'm dealing with people with water leaks. And I mean, it is amazing how much water is just going down the drain.
But what I was gonna say is like, as you see that with our new system, that you're gonna catch it faster, you're
Correct.
gonna have less leaks. So I'm wondering, like, I see the sale of the water, out of the hydrants was higher. Is that something that like, is that convenient for you guys to do as another form of revenue for us, or is that a pain in the butt?
It is convenient, and we talked between everybody down there. We would like, in the future, we would like to take it from having to use a fire hydrant to fill trucks.
Mhm.
We would actually like to put in a regular fill hydrant. And that would come with its own water meter. And then it essentially, if we had it located inside the plant where we wouldn't have to, every day going out, like in the winter months, we have to physically, some days the hydrant will not turn on.
Right.
If we have a real cold day and it didn't drain properly the night before. So we would like to make it more convenient, and we would like to sell water because we sell a fair amount. We would just like to meter it better, because right now we have to take a truck. If a truck comes in, if they say they have 3,000 on, they only need 1,500 gallons. We have to take them at their word. We don't know exactly how much we're putting in. So yes, I mean, and we did sell 54,000 gallons to Heinsberg.
Yeah.
Last week because they were in need of it.
I just observed though, even at this elevated actual of $9,000 or so, that's about 3% of the water revenue. I mean, it strikes me it's never going to be a huge part of
No,
our water revenue.
It's not.
Yeah, it's not gonna be like septage where you can make up for.
Or
lower-
30% of our water is going to be through sales. It seems to me that's going to be a sideline.
It always is, and it's not huge, and it, I mean, we could sell more if it was more convenient, we
Yeah.
would.
Hmm.
But right now, I'll turn a water hauler away if we're busy and we know we can't do it. I'll turn them away because, I'll just say, hey, look, I'm sorry, we can't do it. And then most of the water sales do come in the winter months for us. Because we are one of the only places, there's us, Colchester and Stowe that sell water in the winter. And that's it. Most other places won't do it.
So it's certainly not swimming pools, it's people who have to.
No, ice rinks, and you will not believe the number of people that are still filling wells.
Wow.
They're dry up in the winter and they, haul. We have one particular person who he hauls with his pickup and gets 200 gallons. What?
Every 2-3 days.
Yeah. And has
Wow.
religiously since he moved here
That's
How long ago did they move here?
a couple of years ago.
We've been doing it for a
Yeah.
while.
Wow.
He has 2 drilled wells. He has 1,000-gallon cistern in his basement and still buys water every week.
It's tough. I think we can talk more about that when we get to the budget side,
Yeah.
because we'll need to figure out where we want to go with rates, knowing we're gonna have less usage. So as we talked about, sale of water is up. I think we have even more in April because Heinsberg did have an issue where they were repairing their well, so they bought water from us for 2 or 3 days. Wastewater, we talked about. Septage is, where's septage? Septage is about 67% of the total budgeted, but we should see a big uptick here in the spring months. On the expenses side, water and wastewater payroll are all down as a result of a full-time position that's been vacant for about 6 months of this fiscal year. Staff-related lines are slightly above as we had some employees traveling for training and taking some tests. Administrative lines are a little bit higher, mostly due to support services already being fully paid this year. It's about $30,000. Where's that? Oh, I scrolled right by it. Well, that's the fee that water and sewer pays to admin support services for
I thought it
town,
was
13,000.
43.
It's higher in wastewater.
Okay.
So, yeah, I think it might be 43 or so. It's 30 in wastewater and
Total
13, so a
43.
total of 43. You're right.
Yeah.
And then supplies, utilities, contracted services, equipment, repairs have nothing really material to comment on. They're all about where we expect them to be. The debt, this is our last year for the water tank gap loan. That'll save us about $30,000 in next year's budget. The wastewater department still has one more annual payment of $22,000 due on the phosphorus study from 26. For reserves, we've used $10,000 from the capital reserve for water and wastewater, about $47,000, largely due to the 20-year study and the $10,000 for the new truck.
Did I see in there somewhere that the use of electricity is going down too at the plant?
Yeah, it is. I would like to say it's because we turn the lights off more, but I do try, but
Well, but if you're using that much less water too, like that's a pump that's not running, or like,
Right.
it seems like you're just running more efficiently, so you wouldn't be using as much electricity.
we're trying to do it as efficiently as we can and a lot of it is running the plant the way it was designed. And, pumps now run differently than they used to, like our influent pump, it only runs half the time it used to. Because we go to a supply and, as it fills to one level, then it pumps everything down, then it shuts off and it waits till it fills back up, and then it pumps it down. Before, it was kind of operating at a slower pace, but was running all the time. So now we've gone away from that. I mean, there are a lot of things in here that we do different.
All right,
That's what I got.
good. So we're looking at review of the draft for 26 budget rates now, or?
Yep.
Okay.
And while he's getting that, one thing I will say. As we use less water in the town in general. The majority of that water is also meaning we have a lot less. Sewage coming in. To treat. Because if we find, I bet you since we've been checking religiously, we found 10, if not more. Toilets running at like up to 30 gallons an hour. And, you know, we work with the customer to try to find that water is basically just going through the toilet and into the sewer system.
Mhm.
So it cuts down on the amount of sewage and the, you know, amount of money we need to spend at the other end too, so.
Okay. So on the budget, we didn't make too many changes. We did add some small changes. So we added the child care tax contribution, which is a new tax that wasn't included in the budget last year on both water and wastewater. We updated an account line here to make sure that we gave supplies, lab, and account line. We updated some other descriptions to make sure that they better match with NEMRIC. Hopefully that'll help when we're comparing the quarterly reports because it'll look the same. Connie also found that, was it this one? Water inventory expense, why was that one? Oh, yeah. I think there was a amortization schedule that we hadn't included into the budget yet, so we lowered that for the Bridge Street middle loan. Where did that go? This one here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That was from Bridge Street up.
yeah. So there was, I think we're actually making a lower payment on that than we had in the budget, so we updated that. Updated the user revenue on both water and wastewater to account for these changes as well. So those are some small changes to the budget. When we get into rates, let me pull up a better rate sheet here for you. All right, so last week we were looking at usage. So that's these green spots here. We got our billing straightened out, took some time. We got all the right usage numbers. So we've updated this with the correct usage. So now our rates that flow down to here in the gray boxes, these are accurate based on the current budget draft and the current water usage and wastewater usage. However, one thing we want to look at, as we've been talking about here, is the use of water. Typically what we do is we've always budgeted at 98% of the previous year's use, assuming there's going to be some conservation from people. But as we're seeing, wastewater for, let's see, where was it? In last year, they were at 5 million gallons of water. And this year, for the data that we're using for these rates, we're at 1.2 million gallons. So a large drop of about 4 million gallons of water usage. So if we did that, it's going to cause quite a bit of change to the rates though, because the less that we have in usage, the higher the metered rate's going to go to meet that number that's assigned.
Then that money need to be raised doesn't change.
Yeah. So, I mean, actually, and I'm sort of thinking on my feet here because I haven't dug into this a lot. I wonder what would happen. Well, it would raise all rates then. So again, if we reduced the wastewater or the commercial and government by a certain amount, but kept the others the same, how would that? Because if we did everybody down to like 50%, right, that's going to be challenging. But if we just reduced this line here, just this spot, would that, I'm not sure exactly what that would do to rates, but you know what I mean? Sorry.
This thing
I'm not-
recalculates. Can't we just plug that number in?
Yeah, so let me copy this number here. Copy this. I'll put this over here.
That is frustrating for a person that'd be told, well, we know you're trying to save water, but as a result, we have to charge you more.
Yeah, so if we put, I mean, last year, wait, how do we have to do this then? So if we took that 5.5 and we say, let's say it reduces by 4 million, gosh, would we really be at 1.5 million? That seems really low, but let's try that. And then our rates down here, where do we get to? Yeah, we're still getting a large residential increase, 64%.
At the risk of making a really stupid suggestion, have we shown these numbers to Heidi?
No, no, and I
She
didn't,
always catches
yeah.
the thing we overlook.
right? And I didn't think about, I mean, and I didn't put enough forethought into what should we do with that reduction, because it was really late in the day Friday that I kind of realized like, wow, those numbers are really low for water, for the wastewater treatment facility water usage.
I don't know if this would help at all, but I do remember we did this another time. When you brought up Heidi, it made me think of it, but we changed like the commercial and government, the 35% and 65%. If we changed some of those percentages, would that help the problem at hand?
Hmm,
I don't know.
it might, but I think all that would do is create a higher or lower fixed rate or meter usage just for commercial and government.
Yeah.
It's- The amount that's assigned to that to cover would still be, what would still be the same amount of money they need to cover, and the other ones would still be the same amount of money. And that's all based on the usage and the percentage. So that's where when you reduce this to 1.5, in essence, residential and school percentages go up. So then
Right.
they have to pay more.
I'm not, well, certainly for the school, there's no great variance between customers and residential. I'm sure there's some variance, but I'm guessing commercial and government, we have some very high users and some very low users.
Yeah.
And if you maintain this, it's just sort of interesting that a fixed rate, there are low users in the commercial group paying the same fixed rate as the highest users in the commercial group. As the distribution gets broader, I'm not sure that that still makes sense. Like, isn't the net impact then that the low users are subsidizing the higher users?
Well, and that was one of the things that like Heidi brought up a couple of years ago when she came to us was like, we have a toilet when we wash our hands.
That's an
We
example.
pay the same as like the business above us that like bottles the water.
Suggesting that the fixed rate should be proportional to the amount of usage.
Well, then it becomes the same. It's metered and fixed becomes the same. And the idea was that there was some stability, but either tiers or a lower one or something, right? So you might say, if you're a really high user, your fixed rate's going to be different. I'm not going to lump you in with everybody else. Maybe really in commercial and government, there's more than one user or customer group. There's the high user group
Who is our
and then
highest?
everybody else.
Who is our highest
Harrington's.
commercial user? Is that the brewery?
So
No.
Harrington's.
Barrington.
Somebody's got a really leaky toilet in town and
No.
refuses to fix it.
You wanna know who is religiously always on the high usage list?
Harrington's?
Yes, we do.
Dentist.
What?
Oh,
a lot of rinsing.
the dentist.
Well, they have to for.
Yeah, Harrington's isn't, I don't have much data for Harrington's yet because we haven't changed their big meter. We have just their small one that goes to the offices and stuff changed.
But the
But
dentist.
right now, of all of everybody, and we're down to like 6 meters left to install. Religiously, the brewery and the dentist are the two highest users.
Has anybody ever been in the dentist? Like, I'll just remember when I was a kid, the spit sinks used to
Yeah.
just go all the time and they don't anymore in the dentist that I've gone to.
No, they put the little thing in your mouth.
Well,
I don't think they've got
And,
that.
I mean, we've had to be into the dentist office recently because they were actually losing water supply during the day. They have booster pumps because all of their tools have to have water to cool them, and the booster pumps would lose supply. It was something on their end that they had a problem with that we helped figure out. But, yeah, they use a tremendous amount of water there.
So before we go too far down the dentist road, I think we actually don't have to adjust to 5.5. I think that's already adjusted, because as I reread this closer, the gallonage that we've used, the 5.5 million, that includes a use of only 1.2 million from wastewater treatment facility in that previous 12 months.
Right.
So we don't actually have to change that 5.5. That 5.5 is, if you're gonna stay at about 1.2 million,
I think so.
then we're probably fine with this. It is a reduction, because last year we were at 9 million gallons,
Right,
and that's where we dropped down to 5.
that's what I thought.
So yeah, so I'm sorry, I went, I don't know, it's been a long
Also, right now.
day. So these rates would be accurate based on pretty much on your current
Right.
use, so we don't have to massively adjust it.
And actually, right now, 2 of your commercial accounts are not all open, the 2 restaurants. and stuff.
Right, and we looked into that a little bit. Hatchet and the Big Spruce.
Yeah.
Or, yeah, and the challenge there is each of those buildings has 1 meter. They've got the restaurant and each of them has 4 residential units above it. So it's hard to extrapolate out like how much is restaurant use versus how much is
They.
residential.
Not as hard right now because they've
Yeah,
been
right.
closed for a full
Yeah.
quarter, so.
So have they been closed for a whole quarter right now? We
Yeah,
we could
that's
maybe
it.
pull it out. The other thing though is, they could get a new restaurant
Yeah.
anytime too.
Well, yes, but I do think you could probably do a pretty rough estimate.
Right.
You can
Because they've
definitely
been,
do it.
definitely for the spruce and Hatchet's getting there.
It's been closed for a full quarter. I
Yeah.
believe.
But I guess, do we want to adjust our projections? Because who knows what's going to happen with those spots?
Yeah.
And again, if we go lower, it's going to skew everything again.
I mean, now that we've adjusted down, knowing they're closed, it doesn't hurt us, unless somebody comes back and says, well, wait a minute, or.
So
Well,
what
if
does that bring us down to the rates, Josh?
where we are right now.
Well, you put the 5 back in.
Yeah, I put the 5 back in where
Yeah.
we started with.
So where does that
So-
bring us?
That brings us here where we do have about a 25% increase in residential.
Yeah.
But noting that last year, and I have some notes here, residential went down by 11.9% in the fixed and 9.2% in the metered, primarily because we were at 9 million. Like this jumped from 6.5 million to 9 million. So residential and school kind of went down last year because commercial government went up because we were so high.
Right.
And now we're adjusting. So while a 20% rate doesn't feel great for the increase, there was a reduction last year.
It's more like a 15% increase.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it would be closer to 12 or so for fixed water and about 15 for metered. And I mean, that's kind of what we see, unfortunately, with the way with the way the rates work. It's not as clean as a tax rate where you can really target a number.
Right.
What's that?
I thought we didn't call.
Oh,
it
yeah.
sewer and-
Sewer usage, I'm sorry. And I should be correct and say wastewater usage to get away from this word sewer as well.
Do you have any idea like how high up Hatchet and Big Spruce were on your high users? Like,
I mean, I can go back
So
and
I
look
do-
at where they were, but
I do have
really,
some.
but it's not like it sticks out in the top 5 in your
No.
mind.
So they were fairly high. So Hatchet for FY 24 was at about 201,000 gallons. Big Spruce was 170,000 gallons. So if you look at those combined together, they are about 6% of the total water used. So they're not.
That has an impact. Losing 6% of your revenue.
And again, not all of that is some of that's the
Yeah.
residential. So it's not a full 6%, but it might
Yeah.
be closer to 3 or
But-
4
but-
depending. Yeah.
is it? And if I'm maybe wrong, but both those buildings pay fixed commercial cost?
They do. No. They're metered at the commercial rate, but they pay individual fixed rates. So they
Right,
have a fixed rate for commercial and 4 fixed rates for residential.
So so their metered rate is commercial.
Right.
Yeah.
So that water usage, even though some of it is for residential,
Residential.
it all goes through to
Right.
commercial because there's 1 meter.
And they're still getting charged for the fixed rate, which is
They're getting charged.
plenty
for-
high. They're just not getting charged for their metered usage because they're not using anything. Like there's
Right. Those
just because
restaurants.
they closed, they're
Restaurants will still
still
have
paying
fixed
that
Yep.
690 or whatever
Well, they're still,
fixed rate
so,
per
so
quarter.
right now, they're closed. They're paying for, one building, I think it's 4
Mhm.
residentials.
4 residentials and 1 commercial.
And they're paying commercial rate at the for the residential that they're, I mean,
Mhm.
do you understand?
Yeah.
So they're paying commercial rate for their water
For
in
their
those
residents.
buildings, even though right now it's all going to residential.
true.
use.
And they've never come to you and said, can we have another meter just for the residential?
Well, we took
That
away
was-
that ability when we made the rules.
You're right.
And right now, commercial is lower than residential, I think. Yeah.
Yeah,
By
it
about
is.
80 cents.
Oh. well,
But
there we
It
go.
is.
Yeah. So they're not going to complain.
Yeah.
But if it flip flops, They could.
Sure, but we can also.
I guess my
provide them with the
point that I
savings
was
they had for the last
making-
few months.
Yeah,
Oh, sorry, was that Aaron?
my point that I was making was that it's only really the metered that they're not paying. They're still paying their fixed rate.
Yeah. But the usage is
The usage is high, but
fairly
it's still,
significant still.
well, in the perfect world, we won't see it in 26 anyway, because hopefully by the time fiscal year 26 gets started, one of them will be back online and the
Probably
second
not.
one will be soon after, like, there's no real way to know.
It's hard to predict it.
I'm just looking back in the Wayback Machine here at what happened when the creamery closed, and they were the 800-pound gorilla in water and wastewater, and then they closed, and it's like, oh yeah, everybody else all of a sudden has to suck it up and pay for everything.
That's why Heidi Brown recruited the brewery.
So that was one, it's an extreme example, but it's illustrative. I think if you have a big user who stops using, you have to then shift your revenues to other users, because a lot of our costs are not going to go down, you know? So it seems to me if that dynamic is true for the next year or two, it might behoove us to be looking carefully each quarter at what anticipated and actual revenues are and anticipated and actual expenses. Because if revenues, use goes down, there's fewer leaks, and we're building our whole rate structure on a bunch of users who don't exist anymore and a bunch of leaks that don't exist anymore, the net impact is lower revenue, right?
I mean, we have one customer right now with a 60 gallon an hour leak. And they don't seem to care.
What does that translate into cost per month for them?
It's
Significant.
significant.
We'll never understand people.
And we have gone in there, we have told them what we feel is. And we called them again. I mean, this has been going on for almost a month now. We called them again, or you emailed them?
I just emailed them this, or Friday.
And the response was, well, we'll get to it this week again. Okay, I'm not gonna argue with you. I mean, we've done our part to tell them, don't come to me saying your water bill's high. Cause I'll show you right where. We sent you the emails with the graphs showing them.
We got another one with 25 on East Main and doesn't care.
Yeah,
They just don't, some of them don't care.
so, I mean, it's hard to get some people to stop. Other people, we notify them within a couple days, they wanna know, is my water back? Cause we've.
Mhm.
Maybe the bill just isn't high enough.
So I don't know where we want to go with
Mm.
sort of the unknown future of Hatchet, Big Spruce, fixing leaks. Another spot we could just to hedge is if we've upped the fixed rate by 5 percentage points for residential and commercial. That way we're sort of guaranteeing more revenue in to the system, even if usage goes down. We went the other way a couple of years ago because it wasn't fair to the people that use less water. So I'm not saying it's a good idea. I'm just trying to figure out where do we want to go by throwing out a couple thoughts.
Well, we're trying to stabilize, so like, if water goes up and down, we can deal with that because the fixed rate is gonna be able to carry a certain.
Yeah, and I'm more concerned about water usage going down,
Right,
and then our
right.
meter revenue is lower. So if we have more of our eggs in the fixed basket,
Mhm.
you'll be more guaranteed revenue. Because I don't know that you guys can sell enough water to make up the gap.
No,
But it's hard to say what the gap's gonna be, because some of the leaks were stopped back in September.
Yeah.
And you're still fixing leaks, so it's hard to really predict what's gonna happen. If we change this, I wonder to 95%, I'd have to change that all the way through, wouldn't I? Oh, no. Okay. What if we change that to? What is that?
Right, so you project less use.
Less use across the
More
board.
conservative approach by
Yeah.
that factor.
I mean, now we're still seeing 27% increase, still a decrease in fixed rate for commercial water. So,
It strikes me that that's a sort of simple, perhaps elegant way of hedging our bets about reduced use is you just say, well, let's say future use is going to go down as a percentage of past use, right?
potentially.
Does water usage correlate with how hot it is? That may sound like a dumb question, but
We do get an increase in the summer months, but it's hard to say from. Is it because people are watering gardens or, watering the flowers on the porch
or running lawn sprinklers so they can, when the kids.
Well, or
Taking. more
putting a garden,
showers.
putting a garden hose in a kiddie pool and it gets left on for 3 days.
Reason I ask is because I know we're having every year is hotter than the year before, but they're predicting an especially hot summer this year.
Oh.
So
Yeah,
Great.
so,
So when it stops raining, it's gonna get hot?
yeah, if it's gonna stop raining.
Climate change not so bad.
So it strikes me that this is an area to focus on because the numbers by customer group is gonna be tough.
Mm,
You get lost in the weeds in a hurry.
Yeah,
And the 98 to 95, I was starting to think about this. It's not only reduced use, but let's assume that things like tariffs and supply chain might increase costs, and this helps to offset that potentially as well.
yeah,
I mean-
By the net effect of raising the price per fee structure.
I mean, the treatment plant was a significant reduction in
Yeah.
this. I mean, in that we can show.
it's huge.
There's no way we could reduce it more right now. I mean, we just are really on top of making sure that everything there runs right now, that we've got it back to
Yeah.
good. So, I mean, I can't say we're gonna come and reduce it by, 500,000 gallons next year. We're not.
But yeah, if that number stays at 1.2, that's about 20% of our overall usage. And if we went to 95 on this, then that would hedge some bets.
But I would say that in the future plans, if we could go to the polymer system and not use any, that would significantly cut most of the usage down there now.
Aaron?
Have you seen any difference when you change the meters at the school in their usage?
So the only one we've really been able to change so far is the elementary school, and no, it didn't see much difference at all. We haven't gotten Camel's Hump. They've been dragging their feet with the plumber situation to get it changed. And that's one of the meters that we haven't changed yet.
So let's move this along, maybe.
yeah, we only have about 15 minutes.
Do we want to, so maybe for the next meeting, we come back, we look at 95% as our rates and next meeting is our last meeting for the annual meeting, so it'd be good to sort of get to some finality there. But that seems to be the biggest challenge we have right now. And if we can look at that, maybe a little harder next meeting
Mhm.
to see if that works.
And somebody's trip to Italy in there.
Yeah, well, you're gonna be away next meeting. But yeah, okay. So let's do that. And then if that's sort of where we're at with rates, we can spend some more time next meeting.
Okay. Consumer confidence report.
I brought the expert, know it all.
I have emails from the guy that I did the CCR with, who's from the state. And he's the head of all this division here, so
So if you have any questions,
I have a couple questions that Stephen relayed to me and I emailed him and I have some responses from him. That's pretty much what I got.
Yeah,
Great.
comments. I looked at that. It's interesting. What was the MCL
Maximum
maximum
contaminant level,
levels, and then there's maximum contaminant level
goal,
goal.
yeah.
So I am just coming back, Bart, to your like lead and yeah, that's right, 0. That's the goal
the
is
goal.
0.
That is,
But we'll accept this MCL, which is 90 percentile or something, and that number was 30 or not 30. I'm
no, it's 0.000, wow,
but
it's 3.3 of my leaded copper 90th percentile was 3.3, my range was 0 to 3.8 parts per billion.
it's right there.
Oh,
Yeah, so the,
there you
but I
go.
mean that 15, I'm sorry, allowable level AL.
Yep.
That's 15, right? Not 1.5?
Right, that's 15 parts per billion.
Right, and then 90 percentile is 3.3, which means there's one reading that's above that. So
Yep.
I assume that that's why, is that 3.8?
Yeah.
All
Yes,
right,
it is.
so we're well within this, but we're not at zero and.
No.
But like you, I think you explained to me, they set the range this way because they understand that with like
You
certain
think it-
service lines and soldering, you're realistically never gonna get to zero unless you replace every single piece of the entire system. So I think that's where they say, okay, 15, anything over that, there's a real problem.
And there is a difference between what the health department says
Yes.
and what A&R says.
Yeah, and what is allowed.
And
Which one is got more
A&R is the
leeway?
one we deal with. They oversee the water system.
So you can have it in your water, you can't have it in your house.
Not in
You
your,
can have it in your house.
not in your paint.
But if
Yeah,
they
so
set it,
that's-
I mean, if they set it to zero, I think pretty much every water system would be over zero. So
Right.
that would be,
Yeah.
you would never, you'd have always be in violation.
Yeah.
It's not economically feasible to.
Viable.
Viable.
Yeah, and we just did the water service line test, which is part of our goal of reducing any lead in the system. I mean, that's state mandated statewide.
Yeah.
So they're working on it.
Do we have a sense of whether that's coming from our system or whether that's coming from
What?
the lead, whether that's coming through the
So,
system or if that's in the
these-
houses?
So
Or
we
in the
have,
water.
there's 10.
We have 10 total samples that we took.
And what we did actually this year, Brad and I really went through and we did it the way it is supposed to be done. We followed the state guidelines. Brad took the time to go through the cards in the thing, find the date of the house was made or put on the books. And he followed that through and he found the 10 worst ones.
Well, I submitted to like 13 and then,
And that
yeah.
the state came back to us and said so they have tier 1, tier 2, tier 3.
Yeah.
And we had a couple that were in the tier 1 and most of them were in tier 2. And then I think we had one in tier 3 to fill
Yeah.
the 10 that we
Oh,
needed
yeah,
to do.
And that's
So-
based on trying to get to the oldest houses with the oldest.
The
plumbing.
ones that were manufactured or had construction during that time when those houses could have had lead solder in them, could have had galvanized pipes in them. And so we really took the time and the effort. In the past, it was not done that way. It was done whoever's house they could get into to take it conveniently. So we really did the due diligence this time to find the list, get it approved by the state. And then we sampled from those houses. So it doesn't mean that it's in the system-wide. It means in those houses that were a tier 1 is really should have some lead in it. And that's where we went and sampled from the house.
Yeah.
And our numbers are, our 90th percentile is really, really low compared to what they would have expected.
Yeah.
So in general, we have really safe water. Even the houses that are really apt to have lead in their plumbing, even them don't test bad. And we, like I said, we really diligently sampled houses that we knew were in those tiers.
Yeah,
I feel a lot more confident after this conversation than last time.
Good.
I don't know how.
Yeah.
I mean, like, and I also feel like it sounds like you guys would be able to answer the question if someone read the report and was confused. I'm assuming most
Yeah,
people
and
probably
that's why
won't, but
my in
like,
contact is in there.
yeah,
And then we can show them how to, I mean, all of this data that the state takes is on a website. I mean, it looks like this,
yeah.
you know, and everything is there for every test done for contaminant level for our system back, I think, 20 years.
okay.
And it's just a matter of showing them how they can look at it themselves.
So do you need a motion?
I
To
don't think,
do this
Well,
letter
just-
or no? We can
I think that
keep
it's,
going?
now that we understand it, because we'll post this publicly.
Yeah, this gets mailed, well, it gets mailed to every single
Yeah, it gets mailed
user.
to
It gets
everybody.
posted on the website, it gets posted in the public places, and we'll
Yeah.
do that probably this week or next, as soon as we can get it out the door.
Yeah. And then you have to fill out your report.
Great, thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
So the range with lead, some are zero, meaning there were some tests that showed no lead, right?
Yep.
So we can conclude from that, that the lead that is showing up is in homes, the other side of the curb stop, not the water
Right.
supply.
Fair, that's fair to say.
Not in the system.
But that percentile test is designed to be taken from the home where it could have been used.
First
And-
drop in the morning,
Yeah, and that's the other
That's right.
thing.
hard to.
It literally, they want your house to set. And so, most people don't take it after midnight. And then whenever you get up in the morning, it's the first set. So they really are testing the house.
Yeah.
And not the system, but
Yep.
you can interpret that we don't have it.
And that's,
I don't like
anybody
getting
who's
that.
concerned too, one thing, when we lived in the condos, there was lead that got tested. And they said, if you run your faucet for a couple minutes and then have a drink, it'll usually flush out most of
Right.
it. Because you're right, if it sits, because we have to
Yep.
do the same thing every 3 months, we would take a lead test,
Mhm.
so. All right,
Next up, review of monthly water data for April. Pretty good.
Yeah.
Nothing, no more needs to be
No,
said.
I mean, we really try.
Yeah, great.
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. No, this is feeling good. Update on installation of water meters.
Like I said, we're down to 6. We're desperately trying to get those in. 4 of them are large meters that we'll have to have a plumber install. And then we're down to 2 residential meters. That
In the same home.
in the same home. But we have had no contact whatsoever from them.
Need a SWAT team to go in with.
I don't know, we went tonight,
We
we went before we came
and they weren't
here,
there.
thinking that there would be somebody there at night, no. And we have left numerous
Oh, geez.
notifications, with our phone number and my email and asking, look, just send us.
Is there a chance that it's like a rented building that it
No,
has
there's a
tenants?
person there,
Okay, I was gonna say, cause like if there's
It's-
tenants
it's-
on both
so
sides,
it's-
maybe it's not
it's-
getting,
a duplex,
okay,
but it's 2 houses. And both meters are in the owner's
side,
side.
Yeah.
okay.
I'm sorry.
Maybe we should have the officer help with a wellness check.
Oh, yeah.
Well, there was that,
Car
or there was that, or there was the fact that their curbs aren't, maybe got turned off by mistake. That usually gets a phone call really quick.
I don't know if we could legally do
You can have a
that.
water break
That
on
sounds like
Tilden.
another.
Well, there, we could have a water break on Tilden and have to shut the.
3-minute superintendent report.
All right, and the superintendent report.
So we have a broken press again.
Oh, God.
The conveyor that we've ordered the parts for, just before we came over here, we went out and it finally snapped.
Oh, jeez.
Right where it's all worn and we're waiting for the new one to come.
So is the one that broke an old unit?
Yeah, this is this is the distribution one
Okay.
that we've ordered the new one. We're waiting for it to come in. It basically, what has happened is where it all drops on this distribution conveyor, it wore that middle down to like paper thin. And we've just been hoping. And it finally stopped hoping. It was 2 pieces.
What's the ETA on the new conveyor?
I have to contact and see in the morning. I couldn't get a hold of them tonight.
We're gonna try and get the one that's up there welded back
It
together.
just, I can shorten it. It'll mean we won't be able to fill completely to the front of the trailer. But I can pull the conveyor back and we can weld it over the spot to get us by. But that's what I'm hoping to do. And we'll try that first but we're gonna see where we are, cause it's been over a month. And I know that things are out there now and we're stuck at the manufacturers.
Mhm.
Okay,
Other than that, the plant's been running pretty good. What was our phosphorus removal this?
Removal is 99.8.
Yeah, complete phosphorus removal, which is almost unheard of. In general, we took said that we had taken a really good microbiology class put on by the lady that runs or did run Chicago's
Detroit was 1.8 billion gallons. a day.
yeah, sewer plant, and she was the microbiologist for the plant. So she could tell you everything you wanted to know about microbiology.
Yeah.
And how to keep it alive.
It was cool.
Yep. It was
6-hour
really,
class.
it was a 6-hour, really informative. She was really good at, and that was put on by Rural Water.
Okay,
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Do we need to do next meeting?
yes, you do.
Yeah, you're in charge next meeting.
Yeah, so tell me what we're talking about. We
Budget.
only have 4 minutes
Budget.
left.
Budget,
Yeah.
a lot
Budget.
of budget.
Budget and rates.
Budget.
Rates and
Yeah.
budgets.
Okay,
Hopefully I can tell you all the water meters are gonna be installed. but-
Yeah, we'll have that standard update.
Maybe you should think of how to do a wellness check or whatever to.
Yeah,
Get
I
them-
mean, I'm gonna leave here. We're gonna go back up and check.
At some point, some preparatory discussion for the annual meeting.
Probably next week. I'll have a draft,
Yeah.
draft agenda.
Yeah.
'Cause that's our last meeting.
All right, anything else?
Mr. Chairman, I move we adjourn.
I'll second.
Okay, please.
Aaron, I.
David, I.
Part A.
Organize. Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody.